Alright, let's watch it. Nobody wants to work anymore. Gee willikers, I wonder why. Yeah, COVID kind of broke me. I worked through COVID and then I lost my job during COVID. It was terrible. So yeah, let's see it.
It's a classic gripe of out-of-touch corporate executives hiring minimum wage workers or the trust fund baby who is angry that their gym is busy in the middle of the day. Nobody wants to work anymore. Now, I really hate to say this, but by looking at the numbers, they might have a point. Labor force participation is approaching generational lows even after the pandemic.
Ooh, look at 2020. Boom, boom. People getting laid off. That was one of me. Chat, if you were one of these, say one. I will say one. Boom. That was me. Boom. Boom. 2, if you're a 2, that still really sucked because you had to pick up the slack, or not the slack because it was probably them getting fired, but you had to work twice as hard to make up for all the ones that were fired because of the corpo borpos, because the demand went down. It sucked ass. Yeah, I bet it fucking did. It freaking did.
Pandemic, while labor force participation amongst men specifically is the lowest it has ever been.
Ooh.
These declines have been happening at the same time that unemployment is theoretically quite low, which, if the economists are to be believed, means it should be easy for people who want to get a job, right? Well, not quite. And these numbers are confusing at best, or downright misleading at worst.
Is people just don't want to go to work.
There was a poll I read a long time ago. Only like 18% of Americans feel engaged when they're at work.
I hate my job!
Well, yeah, because 90% of the jobs are fake and paper pushery. Yeah, it sucks. I don't know how to... Again, you try to explain to corpos that your job is meaningless and there's no fulfillment to it, and you clock in and sit around at your desk for like 2 to 3 hours, maybe even more, a day, when you could be at home doing something, like, I don't know, maybe even like... Not even like chilling, because you can't chill when you still have to go to work the next day. You could be doing anything else, like cleaning your house or taking care of your kids or something.
The signs are everywhere. Businesses, especially restaurants, need employees and they need them now.
Dude, less than 20% of the country likes their f***ing job.
Okay, so there are 2 general schools that people fall into when they see that nobody wants to work anymore. The first group are wealthy executives, business owners, or just people who have always worked incredibly hard who don't like that jobs are going unfilled. So they blame it on lazy young people who would rather sit around all day smoking cones and watching skibbity toilets. The second school of thought agrees that yes, people don't want to work. They don't want to work demeaning jobs where they won't get paid enough to support a decent quality of life.
I have an anecdotal experience of trying to get a job as a barista, in New Zealand, and they said, no, you need to have a bachelor's degree or a qualification of taking a barista course. I shit you not, I was flabbergasted, and I went to ask my parents for $200 to do a barista course. And guess what? I signed up to the local college where they do they teach you how to pour coffee, which was like so retarded, but like I was like 18 at the time, right? And guess what? The college course was canceled. The public, little college course was canceled, and they refunded me my $200 because there wasn't any people that wanted to do it. So I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to get the qualification if I can't even get to the course? Like, I can't even get it. It was insane. That was one of my first moments realizing as like a young adult that like I this is out of my control. So you didn't learn how to make coffee? I could have learned at the cafe that I was applying to, but they wanted a fucking piece of paper. It was so dumb. New Zealand Australia for work visas. It wasn't even a fucking work visa. I was a citizen. It doesn't even matter. It's horrible in certain countries.
It's nice when two groups who are so different can agree on something. So really, the only thing left is to work out why people don't want to work. Now, in most cases, the jobs that nobody wants to work fall into one of three categories.
Here we go.
The first are jobs that are just paying well below market rates given the experience or the location required. Businesses aren't going to be able to fill a full-stack senior development role in Silicon Valley for $50,000 a year plus equity in their questionable pre-seed startup. But there are still plenty that try. Even entry-level jobs that pay minimum wage in very high cost of living areas are going to be much harder to fill in a city where even finance bros are living in shared housing.
You need to have a minimum of $80,000 a year to live in LA. Or somewhere in Silicon Valley, I think it was. That is obscene. And that's why you hear of people, for example, like at Blizzard that get forced to move to California, where they live in like houses meant for like families with 6 people.
Now, hot take alert. But just like there are no shortage of crappy businesses and managers that expect to pay workers nothing for world-class skills and experience, there are lots of workers who expect world-class pay with little or no marketable expertise. One of the most insightful pieces of data on this issue is this recent survey right here. It asked a selection of Americans what they considered to be the minimum salary they would need to be financially successful.
Holy!
Now, most of the responses
No freaking way! 500K?
to these numbers have been laughing at the Gen Zs just entering the workforce who think that almost $600,000 a year is a realistic salary goal. Because for most people, it just isn't. Unless you are in a few very specific career paths.
Look, I understand thinking that you need a lot of money to live, but that's just such a weird... That's a cooked-ass number, man.
There are basically no jobs that pay this
Social
money.
media, by the way.
And even then, you need an insane amount of luck to get those opportunities. Now, you can blame this on young people who don't really know how the world works yet, or social media that makes it look like every hustle bro is flying private. But it's all distracting from a more interesting data point.
Okay.
The average boomer thinks financial success is achieved with a salary of just under $100,000. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is still almost double the median national salary. But in most major cities where people can actually find jobs that pay this much, $100,000 certainly doesn't afford a lifestyle of financial success.
And the problem is, even if you move out of the city and you live like, I don't know, in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, or you live like in a little town, most of those houses still cost an arm and a leg. That's what's also extremely disproportionate. Like, you go out of town like an hour or two away, even if you commuted, you wouldn't be able to afford the house because it costs so much money.
Simply a massive gap in expectations between the generations looking for their first jobs and the group responsible for giving out most of the jobs. So they both agree that nobody wants to work, just for different reasons. The second type of job that nobody wants to work are in workplaces that push their staff, demand unreasonable overtime, or have management that are needlessly abusive. This happens in a shocking amount of businesses across the country. And even if you are lucky enough to avoid a boss that thinks shouting is an effective motivation tool, you have probably worked some overtime out of fear of losing your job or being reprimanded. According to a 2023 workplace survey,
this is true. One of my first jobs where I got not like yelled at, but like it made me feel really uncomfortable, but it was me working a retail job, and it was just me being paid to like essentially just handle the register. He told me to start selling shit on the floor, and I said, okay, well, are you gonna pay me more? And he's like, no, I am not going to be paying you more. It wasn't yelling, it was like almost yelling. And I'm like a kid at the time, essentially. Like, this is my first job, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you're gonna make me sell on the floor while I'm doing a second job and you're not gonna pay me extra? Like, go fuck yourself. And I quit like a couple months later, but like, what the fuck? What?
The average full-time worker across the country studied is now putting in an average of 9.2 hours of unpaid overtime.
Yeah.
These jobs often don't have much trouble finding people to start, but they do struggle with high staff turnover. The third are simply jobs that never actually existed. You probably
fake jobs. This is what I was talking about.
all know about ghost jobs by now. But even if you really do want to work, there is a good chance that most of your applications are just going to build out a workforce database, not to actually be considered for employment. Now, whatever the specific reason, the results are the same. Less people end up working. But aside from settling some beef between entitled Zoomers and some out-of-touch boomers, this data all reveals something more concerning about work in the current economy. It's not that people don't want to work anymore. They simply can't afford to. So it's time to learn how money works to find out what's really behind the worst phrase in the workplace. This week's video is sponsored by MyHeritage. Ever wondered what remarkable stories are hidden in your family history?
Don't give your DNA to these data centers, man!
MyHeritage is the world's leading platform for genealogy research and DNA testing, trusted by over 90 million users worldwide. With 20 billion historical records and advanced AI tools, MyHeritage makes exploring your roots not just accessible, but truly enjoyable. To me. Here's a fun discovery I made. My great-grandfather started a brewery in Germany, and it's still thriving today. Imagine finding out your family's legacy is still making its mark. That's the kind of excitement MyHeritage can unlock. I started my journey by adding a few basic details, and their instant discoveries feature brought my family tree to life with whole new branches in seconds. It was incredible to learn about connections I didn't even know I had, including distant cousins who lived fascinating lives. One of my favorite parts of using MyHeritage is transforming old black and white photos with their photo colorization and animation tools. When I colorized a photo of my great-great-grandmother Sophie, it felt like stepping back in time and seeing her smile come to life. The animations even added a touch of personality, showing what
this is horrifying!
her expressions and mannerisms might have been like. And
no, thank you. I'm good. I don't want to see my grandma move. I'm alright.
It's not just about what you see. MyHeritage also lets you deep dive into historical records to uncover stories and details. From ship manifests to old census data, seeing your ancestors' lives unfold in official documents is like piecing together a historical puzzle. Ready to discover your own family's hidden stories? MyHeritage offers a 14-day free trial so you can experience the platform's full range of features. Start your journey today. Trust me, you'll be amazed by what you uncover. Okay, so yeah, there are millions of people out there that think nobody wants to work because they couldn't hire someone with 20 years of experience on a programming language that has only been out for 5 years for $15 an hour. There are also people who don't want to work because they think unless they are offered 6 figures in their first role out of high school, it's not worth their time, and they would be better off sitting at home working on their NFT dropshipping business. Both of these groups—
I mean, it makes you more money. Like, again, people will find a way. The not resourceful one will die. And the ones that get pushed, like a rat getting pushed around in a cage, they will eventually find a way out, even if it means chewing through the cage and destroying the cage. Like, it sucks. Yes, dropshipping is horrible. NFTs fucking suck. They're a scam. But that's kind of what some people just resort to doing, because it's like, why the fuck would I even try and sell myself to a corporate borpo that basically fucks me over? There used to be company loyalty as well. Now you know what you're getting into. The illusion of like, oh, I'm gonna join Bank of America and I'm gonna be a bank teller and then I'm gonna be a regional manager and I'm gonna earn a decent amount of money and I'm gonna be able to buy a house and I'm gonna be able to find a wife that's working at the bank too, or have kids, and then those kids, like, it doesn't happen anymore. Company loyalty was an illusion? No, it's not. It was not back in like the 70s, 80s, and up until maybe like the early 90s. It recently died off. Yeah, like it used to be a part of like America, and you know, it was like a big social fabric as well. There was a social dynamic that you met your wife at work. Now people don't even meet friends at work. Now it's all sterile and nobody gives a fuck. Happens in small companies? Yeah, but those small companies are dying because the big companies are eating them, essentially. Marxist, man? Do we just throw out words without even knowing what they mean? The fuck?
Definitely exist in shockingly large numbers. But even though it's really fun to make fun of both sides, it distracts from the much more important reason why labor force participation is getting worse. Well, as you might have been able to guess, this trend is really being driven by specific age groups and specific locations. If you look at labor force participation and exclude the youngest generation of workers and the oldest generation of workers, it's actually approaching all-time highs, which really makes sense when you think about it. It's common for both men and women to work full-time these days, and for most households, it's simply a financial necessity. So yeah.
Yeah, and then sometimes people work 4 jobs each, and then they have to take care of kids that are screaming at them the whole time, and then they can't talk to each other, and then they get divorced because they're upset!
Even if people don't want to work anymore, they kind of are stuck doing it anyway. The reason labor force participation has fallen off in general, though, is because the average is being dragged down by a lot of young workers and old workers. The old workers are the easiest to explain. As people started living longer, retirement ages were pushed back, and more of the population began working in non-physical jobs. As a result, a larger share of the population over 55 remained in the workforce. This has started to reverse, though, as self-funded retirement systems and general asset prices have allowed a lot of over 55s to step back from the labor force, especially after COVID, as a lot of people received severance packages and decided that an early retirement was better than going back to the office. Labor force participation from young people just entering the workforce either out of high school or...
And then there's also the government trying to increase the age of retirement. Oh my gosh, I saw the saddest thing the other day. I went to Target to go pick up something, and I needed to, get the lady or the man with the keys. And there was this lady that was like older than 65. I think she was pushing probably like 75. She was at the youngest, like 70, I think. And I was trying to talk to her, and it was like pulling teeth. And I couldn't get mad at her because it's like, oh my god, like you're an old lady. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you're having to work like this? Like, that's crazy. I felt bad, genuinely. I didn't get mad at her. I was like, yeah, I'll go. Like, I was trying to ask her for help, and she just wouldn't understand what I'm asking, and I'm like, oh, never mind, it's okay. I'll go find someone else. Bye. And then she just went off to do more work, and I just felt bad. What if she just wanted to work for fun? I sincerely doubt that. I mean, it's possible, but I sincerely doubt that. When you're that old, you shouldn't even be, like, getting up for more than like a couple of hours a day. You should be sleeping most of the time.
College is also pulling down the average, just for different reasons. More people than ever are getting a college degree, which means they are starting to work later, and fewer people are working part-time jobs while they study because for many, it's simply not worth it given how much debt they are going to be in when they graduate anyway. This might not also be a shock to you, but it's getting really damn hard to find a job out of college. A few months ago,
when my brother, who's older than me, got out of college, it was hard for him to find a job. He was basically working for like Pizza Hut and shit, like doing deliveries, and he was struggling to find a job. And my parents kept blaming him. And then when I got out of college, well, not college, I didn't get out of college, I quit college and I was trying to find a job. I couldn't even find a bare minimum job. It was sad.
A post from a professor at Berkeley made the rounds after it spoke about his top students from a top college struggling to find work in technology, an industry that was hiring highly intelligent graduates like this as fast as they could make them just 24 months ago. Previously, a Berkeley CS graduate, even if not a top student, would receive multiple appealing job offers in terms of work type, location, salary.
Because you finished school. Like, my brother finished school. He got good grades. It's so sad. And that was years before I even fucking finished or, like, quit.
An employer.
Sad.
However, outstanding students, like those with a 4.0 in major GPA, are now contacting me worried because they have 0 offers. I suspect this trend is irreversible and likely part of the broader trend impacting almost every employment sector. It's pretty grim stuff coming out of one of the best schools in the country. It might not be the most logical thing to do, but a common reaction from people who can't land a job with a degree they got to make them more employable is to just go get another degree. The rate of master's and PhD
and then you get into more debt. I love that. I love that logic. Yeah, just go and get another degree. Yes. Yes, girl.
Recipients has grown even faster than people getting an undergraduate degree, because that's now normal to stand out in a highly competitive job market. And to be honest, it's a nice way for people to avoid the reality of the job market for another few years. Spending another 2 to 8 years at college to get advanced degrees means people aren't in the labor force, which pulls down the average to look worse than it really is. So those are the ages that are perpetuating this dumb myth. But this trend is also highly dependent on location. And to see that, you need to go to the place where apparently the absolute least amount of people want to work.
West Virginia.
Yes, the Rust Belt state has the lowest labor force participation in the country, but also some of the most unusual statistical anomalies. The state is quite poor after its major industries like coal mining and manufacturing were either outsourced or—
Oh, I watched an entire little mini docu on this on YouTube of a guy wandering around and talking to like essentially hillbillies in West Virginia. It was fascinating. And they all were really, really nice people, by the way. And they'd be like, yeah, my grandpappy used to work up in there in the coal mines, and they'd all have like real thick accents. You can barely understand them sometimes. And it's young people just being stuck in there and be like, yeah, I can't really have a job. And they always tell me to go out into the city because I can't leave my parents because it's really far away and they get sick and stuff, and it just sucks. And then, it perpetuates the drug culture there too, and they say they have a really big drug culture. Dropping out of school is really common when it used to not be that common. Drugs used to be less common. The community's falling apart. Like, all of this snowballs into other effects, and it's really sad.
Or simply fell out of widespread use. This means that a lot of areas have effectively been left behind with no major employment opportunities, meaning that labor force participation is much lower than the national average. But strangely, in some areas, the participation rate is much higher than what would be expected. A recent study conducted by economists from Hamline University, Cornell, and Virginia Tech found that depending on the county, labor force participation in West Virginia ranges from 42% to 77%, a gap between regions of 35%, while the average across the US states is just 17%, less than half of West Virginia. It's not unusual that cities and working towns will have higher labor force participation than other areas, because people often specifically move to these locations just to get work. But this variance was startling and uncovered a bigger national trend. The people in areas that still had work can't afford not to work, and the people in areas with no work couldn't afford to move to areas with work since it could mean giving up family support networks or simply paying for the cost.
And that's what they want to do. They want to pull you apart from your family so that you become isolated. Yep. Classic. Classic.
To relocate housing. A lot of people who had the financial means have already moved out of the state, only making this problem worse, as they take business opportunities and money away with them. It's a dense read because it's an academic paper. It's for nerds. But if you ever feel compelled to say that nobody wants to work anymore, I definitely suggest you have a look at it. The report itself also looks at welfare issues specific to West Virginia. But just because the state is—
And you think those people don't want to work? They'd be more than willing to go back to what they used to if it meant that they could support their families. All people want ultimately is to be able to support their families, put bread on the table, and just live their life. Yeah, where's the job? Nowhere, exactly. And then boom, there's no jobs, and now we're crying.
Experiencing this problem the worst doesn't mean that it's in any way just something hurting them. The trend of a few concentrated cities doing extremely well while everywhere else stagnates can make nationwide figures look good. But it also means people who want to work have an option of trying their luck for one of the few jobs left in areas with fewer opportunities, or living in an extremely expensive city to compete with everybody else fighting over a spot in the few places left where people can reliably get ahead.
Single family rentals. Miami ranks 9th most expensive. Oh, I'm gonna throw up.
Finance and tech have become one of the last escape ropes for people to make a deal with the devil to get out of these areas with little to no opportunities. And I am going to be writing an article about how even that career path is becoming impossible in my completely free email newsletter. So sign up if you are interested in reading that and other articles that will never be made into videos here. Thanks for watching, and thanks again to MyHeritage for making this video possible. Check them out by scanning this QR code or clicking the link in the description. Now obviously, a lot of this could be handled by companies just allowing remote work, so go and watch my recent video on why companies absolutely will not let that happen for anybody except their CEOs.
Because that means that you're gonna be less likely to be wasting time at work. You gotta get up and eat shit and sleep and go back to work the next day. Yeah.
And make sure to like and subscribe to keep on learning how money works.
But the CEO is wasting time? Yeah, rules for thee, but not for me, bitch. That's why. Mm-hmm. That's right. What is it? Was it called? The boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I poop on company time. Yep. Still rings true. Chat, check him out. How many works? Very smart video. Yeah. Yeah. Corporal Borpals will drain your balls. And everybody has to deal with it. It's awesome.